Hey, what's up everybody? Tech Chucker here, and today we're going to take a look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends Captain America Civil War Wave Black Panther. Now this has been a kind of a hard to find figure for quite a few people. I lucked out and happened to find him at a Walmart outside of town when I was traveling. Now I was pretty excited to get this, and then when I cracked it open, it wasn't nearly as good as I was hoping it was going to be, but it's still a pretty darn good figure. Now, one thing to note, I'm switching up my reviews just a little bit. I'm going to do the sculpt and the paint review at the same time, hopefully to try and save a little bit of time. But without further ado, let's go ahead and crack this thing open and take a closer look. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the articulation on this figure, and it's not amazing, but it's not terrible, and it's pretty much run of the mill for a Marvel Legends. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. His head is on a ball peg with a hinge, and he is able to look up this far, not as far as I would like. I just feel like he should be able to look up a little further. He can get his head all the way down or his chin all the way down into his chest, which is great. He's got good side to side. There's no issues with that. And then there's just barely any tilt in his head, but it's enough. In his shoulders, he's got a ball peg which allows him to get his arm pretty much all the way out, which is pretty good. He does have full rotation of that arm, which I would expect, and then he does have an upper bicep swivel, which works fairly well. Well, I shouldn't say fairly well, it works well. It just looks a little cruddy. And then he's got double jointed elbows, which again, the top joint doesn't really do much of anything. It's all the bottom joint. And he's able to get just over 90 degrees, which is okay. And he's got a peg joint and a hinge joint in his wrists, which works. They actually work really well. I'm actually really happy with that. There's no articulation issues there. In his torso, he's got a hinge joint, which allows him to crunch forward fairly well. You can see that. It does look a little funny on the back, and then the back arch, he's able to move back pretty far, but that looks terrible. The sculpt of that is just looks terrible. And they even stopped sculpting it too. So he's got a waist joint, which allows him full rotation, no issues there. He's got T-jointed hips, and he's not really able to do the splits much. He's not really able to kick forward very much, which is terrible, and he's not really able to kick back very much either. And for Black Panther, I expect a little bit better. He's got an upper thigh cut, which also doesn't look great, but it's okay. And then he does have good double jointed knees, which work fairly well. And then he does have a hinge in his ankle, and he's able to get his foot all the way back. He's he's able to move his ankle forward really well. And then he does have an ankle pivot, which I like. The ankle pivoting and the ankle hinge works really well. I'm just not happy with the rest of the legs. They just don't look that great, and they aren't as articulated as I would like. So overall, articulation is decent. Like I said at the beginning of this, it's pretty well average. Nothing that makes me go, oh wow, this is amazing. Okay, so hopefully this works where I do the sculpt and the paint review at the same time, and we'll save a little bit of time for everybody. But I first want to take a look at the head sculpt and paint, and I think that Hasbro did a really good job. It's sculpted really nicely. There's a lot of detail put into the actual sculpt work of the head and the face. You can see there's just little tiny bits of detail throughout, and I think they added a decent amount of paint to accentuate that sculpt work, and I think they did a good job painting the eyes as well. Moving into the torso, throughout the whole body, there's a lot of really good sculpt work, and I really like this necklace thing. I think they did a great job sculpting it and painting it. It's a little sloppy in a few areas, but overall, I think they did a good job. Now, the rest of the body, there's not really a lot, there's no shading, but that's okay, it's a black figure. I will say that the arms are sculpted in such a way that they're shaped really weird. And I don't really know how to explain it. I feel like right where the upper bicep swivel starts, the arms kind of bend out weird, and they kind of bow out. in a way that just kind of looks unnatural. And I'm not, maybe it's my, maybe I'm the only one that's got that, but you can see, maybe you can see in at this angle, I feel like his arm is going out in the wrong direction. It just, to me, it seems, off-putting a little bit. Maybe I'm the only one that got that. And if so, kudos to everybody else for not getting the cruddy one. But moving into the hands, I like these hands. I think that they are sculpted really well. I think they're painted really nicely. I like the little silver on the knuckles and the fingertips. I think that's really, really cool. Throughout, there's really cool sculpt work. In the lower torso, we've kind of seen these little accents on the lower torso with the silver before on other figures. Down on the legs, there's really no paint until you get down to the feet. I will say, I think the shoes are shaped weird. It looks kind of like a camel's foot or something. I don't remember that ever seen his feet like that in the comics, but whatever. It's a new sculpt, so that's kind of cool. And I do like the silver accents. I like the silver accents throughout the figure. So in terms of sculpt work, aside from the weirdness of the arms, I think they really did a great job. I would say that I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I would definitely say that they knocked this one out of the park, especially for a legend, especially for the head sculpt. It is great. Moving into the accessories, we get one accessory with this guy, and it is this alternate head or unmasked head. And I think they got the likeness pretty good for what we see in the movie. I forget the actor's name. I never seem to be prepared with the names and whatnot from movies and whatnot, what have you. But I think the paint and the sculpt are really well done. I lucked out that I didn't have to dig through because there weren't very many Black Panthers to dig through to get one that had good eyes that weren't kind of derpy on it. And you can see this is what he is going to look like with that alternate head on the body, and I think that looks pretty darn good. I believe he gets just a hair more tiltability. I don't know if that's, but he gets a little bit more tilt when you put this alternate head on, which is kind of cool to get a little bit more articulation. So obviously the sculpt is considerably different around the joint area, but I think that they did a good job. I do wish that we did have some extra hands, maybe not the clawing hands that we get, so that we could have a little bit more diversity of options. But I do think that in the end, I'm going to be posing him doing his, claw action anyway. So I am pretty darn happy with it. All right, so this is definitely a must-have for your collection. Get out there, go see if you can find it out in the wild. Try not to pay too much more than 20 bucks for him. I don't think he's worth 20 bucks, but I'm also not really the type that thinks that any of these figures are worth more than 20 bucks. Alrighty folks, so I hope this was helpful. Make sure you stay tuned for more. Hit subscribe to be able to do that. Like me on Facebook, and I will see you later.
Tech Trickers Brain Blast.